Welcome to a new update today in which we're going to look at Bitcoin. A relatively short update as we're just going to focus on the price action and look at a few scenarios we could be eyeing when we get towards the climax, which is going to be next week with the FOMC meeting. And yesterday we've had some data as well. Today we've had some data as well. But before we continue, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to this YouTube channel, and also check out our trade letter, which is completely for free. You can find it in the description beneath. And finally, until the end of the month, we've got a lifetime 30% discount because we're going to launch copy trading on February 1st. Make sure to use that if you want to use the copy trading with my portfolio or the trade IDs or more and just get into the platform. Last month we've done a 37R until now, which is 37%. Make sure to use the discount to become a member and to grow your journey into trading. When we're looking at the economic data, we've had some big numbers coming in yesterday regarding the markets, which is the GDP number, which came in way more positive than expected. And ultimately, that's a good sign for the markets, of course, that the recession is avoided. And the markets reacted in a positive way. The DXY didn't really move at all or didn't move that much. So in that way, we're just waiting for the next event to take place. What we also saw was the advanced GDP price index, which has been going downhill, in which we have been dropping quite fast. It's a number that comes out every 3 months. Here you can see the acceleration we have been seeing. Actually, it's a good number that the inflation is going down at this point. The ultimate bad case here is that the number is higher than expected, which means that the inflation is not dropping as much as we want. And that gets us towards the point of next week, which is the Fed and the FOMC. There are just no arguments still to pause the hikes at some point. They will probably continue to hike, but they get towards the turning point within this meeting or the next meeting. So the markets are already overly positive pricing in a case where the markets or where the FOMC is going to pivot or pause. That's what you see right now is the markets are rallying while economic data is still bad and big layoffs are taking place around tech companies overall. In that way, you should be concerned about the actual run-up at this point. And that's why the actual run-up of Bitcoin is also a point of concern at this stage, in which entering into Bitcoin at this point is probably not the wisest option to do so. Essentially, as we've just been witnessing a run-up of approximately 40% in a time period or a time span of a few weeks, it isn't bad to have some cool down taking place on the market. So what are the levels that we're looking at? Essentially, that's the ID part. Essentially, we have been getting a run towards 23.2. We have been getting some tests around 22.3, resulting into sideways period on the market. So we've got a range construction here, which ultimately could be classified as the distribution pattern, which most likely is going to end up in a breakdown. What you want to see in terms of having a breakdown is that you see the price action establish a sideways range, take liquidity above the highs, and then starts to fall back down. So what we have been witnessing here is we've established the high around 23.2, went down, support tested 22.3, bounced back up to clear or to confirm the resistance here, come back down again for support, and we've got a big trap towards 23.6, ultimately classifying that as resistance. And since then we are making lower highs, lower lows. So the crucial area becomes 23.2 again, which we clearly need to break, and then we're probably going to have a run into the 24K area to see whether we're going to have continuation or another massive rejection. Ultimately, again, the sellers are going to get exhausted in that way and we start to continue running, but also the buyers are not really stepping in at this point. So right now we are making lower highs. If we break 23.1, I think we're going towards 24K, which I preferably want to see as a potential TP for myself. If we don't break 23.1 and get towards the range low, you can definitely say that we have multiple tests here. So the next test will ultimately bring down the markets and would not be granting continuation at all. So in that term, you could probably assume that we're continuing to fall. And I think it's a more likely scenario at this stage, all depending on the data that's going to come out. If we're looking at the daily time frame for Bitcoin, we can ultimately also say that we are getting a bit exhausted. We are still into this range resistant area here. Price action looks a lot like with the price action we have been seeing in this period. Some sideways action, RSI being over exhausted, doesn't necessarily have to say that we need to correct at this point, but at least a retest around 21k, lower high 20k, and then continuation doesn't seem too far-fetched, right? Let's have a look at the DXY, which ultimately starts to build a massive bullish divergence and is on the edge to turn around towards a bullish perspective. In that way, next week could be an important one, as we are currently into a massive support for the DXY. And if it starts to turn around for a little bit, you can definitely arguably see a correction taking place on Bitcoin. Now, what are we seeing on the indices? The indices are also still running up. However, it starts to look like we're getting into a resistance territory. Breaking through 12,100 points is going to result into a strong breakout towards 13.5k points. But at this point, it seems more likely that we will be having some retests taking place on lower boundaries, knowing that the DXY is into a support area at this stage. So when we're looking at Bitcoin as the final conclusion of this update, I think inevitably we have to look at a case of 23.2. That's just a pivot. If we get above there and have an actual real reclaim, I'll be interested into looking into longs. But until now, I think you favorably want to be into some shorts and just watch 21.4k for a bounce area towards 21.1. Or when we sweep the low at 22.3 and reclaim it, that will be a trigger as well. Make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to this YouTube channel, check out the discount code, and I'll see you again tomorrow.